Hi, my name is Lindy Jung, and I am a soon-to-be traditionally published science fiction and fantasy author. My debut novel, Moth's Blood, comes out from Bloomsbury in the US and Del Rey in the UK in fall 2026. And welcome back to another Honest Author Chat. So this is a little series that I am probably going to aim to do monthly, where I kind of just sit down and talk about a topic related to publishing as I'm undergoing this journey for the first time and hopefully continue to undergo in the future. I also answer questions from a pool of questions, which if you would like to submit a question, there is a Google form in the link below. There's a Google form linked below. I will warn you that it might take me some time to get to your question because I have a pool of around 60 right now, and I'm really only answering 4 to 5 per video. All that being said, welcome back. The first Honest Author Chat was about my auction experience in the UK, which was very fresh, and I'm kind of continuing that theme, I guess unintentionally, with this week's installment because I will be talking about the editorial process. I am kind of in the thick of second round revisions for mods, which I guess naturally leads into the update section of this video, just for a little bit of a publishing / life / writing update. Yes, the big news is that I finished my first revision for Moth's Blood. You can see me doing most of that process in the New York sort of writing retreat travel / writing blog that I posted. I don't know when, but it's up now and it took me so long to film. But I did finish that revision in March. I got notes back relatively recently from both of my editors this time, and now I'm doing the second revision. I also went on my second ever writing retreat in Kenosha, Wisconsin with a bunch of AuthorTube folks, and it was literally like a life-altering experience. I mean, my previous writing retreat, I went out with folks that I had known for a while and had been talking to for a while. I didn't have the same level of experience or connection with these people, and then it just turned out to be such a wonderful, affirming, community building experience. Every one of those folks is so close to my heart now. Words can't even really describe how much that trip and that retreat meant to me. And also a little life update. I cut my hair. Feels good. I don't know. I think it looks cute. And my long hair was kind of becoming a pain, so I'm glad I did it. Kind of took a break there, but jumping into today's topic, I wanted to talk about something that I've been noticing in my comment section more and more ever since I kind of, well, since forever, but especially since I announced my traditional publishing deal. And it's this idea that, no judgment, like I understand how people come to this conclusion, but it's basically the idea that if you pursue traditional publishing and you do get a book deal, then ultimately you are beholden to the creative feedback, the critique, and the editorial direction of these greater powers. So like your editor or editors, the publishing house, marketing, will all have a say in your book and ultimately shape it into what they want it to be rather than what you want it to be. That seems to be the gist of some of the comments that I've been receiving. I never fully internalized that idea, I don't think. I have always kind of been like, well, I just don't imagine that be the case, because every editorial relationship I've had, the non-professional ones and the professional ones, have been sort of a back and forth, so I imagined that TradPub would be the same, maybe a little stricter in terms of adhering to the editor's vision. But now that I have gone through a couple rounds of edits with an editor at a TradPub house, with 2 editors actually, I wanted to speak on my experience. I will say the caveat is that I'm only speaking on my experience, and yes, I have heard anecdotes both from people I know and just from like online spaces from authors who unfortunately, for whatever reason, ended up publishing a book that did not adhere to their vision after going through that editorial process. But I do think that those cases are relatively rare. For all of those anecdotes, I probably hear like several more of people who've had a very smooth, or at least very understanding editorial process that more closely aligns with my own. That being said, I do think I got very, very lucky. I say lucky because while people will tell you to find or choose an editor who understands your creative vision or understands your vision for the book, that isn't always a reality, I feel like. For example, I was preempted Moth's Blood was preempted, not me personally, which means I didn't really speak to any other editors. Like, we had our editorial call before the preempt. I thought, hey, this feels like at the very least like a good personality match. How do you know based off of like one itty bitty Zoom call that that editor is going to align with your creative vision? You don't really know for sure. And a lot of the times, like in my case, you might not have an option between multiple editors. And it personally, even if the call had gone really poorly, which thankfully it didn't, I would have felt really iffy about just turning down a publishing deal when that was what I'd been pursuing for so long. I'm gonna be vague, but early in my career I had someone in publishing reject the manuscript I was on submission with at the time, and then offer to work with me on a different kind of project that did not align with my career goals, and I did turn that down. So that, I guess, would be an example of, an extreme example of editorial goals not aligning. I've never told that story before, but that happened a long time ago, and it was like, you know, no hard feelings, just personally, what they were offering me was the opportunity, the amazing opportunity to write stuff that I didn't want to write. I would say that experience taught me that, yeah, you can always say no. You have the option to say no. And in general, the editorial process for me has been way more of a two-way street than honestly I ever could have imagined. On one hand, from my end, I am a much more confident writer than I was even like 2-3 years ago. I'm very assured in my vision for Moth's Blood. I think it has a very clear identity that is apparent to most people who read it, hopefully. So I know that if my editor, for whatever reason, made a suggestion that would go against the book's identity, like would go against the grain of what I know the book is supposed to be, is trying to be, then I feel confident having that discussion, asking why they want to make that change. I am of the belief that, for example, if anyone, not just an editor, but a beta reader, an alpha reader, if anyone reading the book and providing feedback suggests a change that I really disagree with inherently, once I get past that like knee-jerk reaction of like, ugh, why would you suggest that? It's very productive to have a discussion about that suggestion and figure out what the root of it is. For example, if someone were reading a book of mine and saying that the magic system needs to be completely overhauled into something entirely different and they have a really specific suggestion, I would want to have that discussion and maybe go deeper, figure out where that reaction is coming from them. Maybe we'd find out that it's something with the world building, how the magic is used, how much it's used, how effective it is in the story. There's probably some truth or some validity to that comment, but it's just not quite what they are suggesting. So I do feel comfortable having those conversations, but on the flip side, I have not felt the need to have any sort of discussion like that. Both of my editors are publishing professionals. They know what they're doing. I think they are supremely talented. They understand the book, so I got so lucky there. They really see what is strong about it as well as, you know, what weaknesses it has. I feel like we just work really well together. So I just value their feedback so much, and I don't think they have led me astray yet. At the end of the day, my editors acquired this book for a reason. They saw potential in it, they saw strength in it. They want to elevate those strengths that were already there rather than rewriting the book into something that it's not. And I do think that is the case for 99% of publishing professionals. There are situations in which maybe a book has a very commercial hook and the content doesn't match that hook, and you might need to do more of an overhaul there. And I'm not saying that's right or wrong, I'm just saying, you know, that's a reality of publishing as an industry. But I think that, and I hope that, and based off of things I've heard and things I've experienced, I do think that publishing is full of people who are passionate about literature. Honestly, it is a commercial industry, but most people in it don't get paid nearly enough. With that being said, let's talk a little bit about what the editorial process has looked like for me so far now that I'm at kind of this later stage, and then what is going to happen with the next couple steps. Editorial timeline. You start with developmental edits. Developmental edits can be defined as pretty much any of the big picture edits, so that would be anything to do with character and character arcs, the plot, the world building, kind of these like broader scale outside of just the line by line edit. After I agreed to publish with Bloomsbury, I think it only took a couple weeks for me to get my first edit letter and inline comments, so I've had a couple questions about what editorial feedback looks like at this level. And while every editor is definitely going to go about this a little bit differently, my editor sent me an email with sectioned off, I don't know, like topics, I guess you'd say. For example, We talked a little bit about the main character's mom and her role in the story, some side characters, some plot beats, and then she'd also left inline comments on the document itself, which I just kind of transferred into Google Docs so I could look at as I was going through the manuscript. A week or a few days after I got that feedback from her, we had a little Zoom call early in the morning. I think we had a couple because around this time I sold to the UK, so the UK editors also hopped onto an editorial discussion call, and we just kind of like brainstormed how would I address some of these topics, what were my ideas and plans, so I came into those meetings prepared with notes on what I was going to do, like a revision plan. And it wasn't terribly structured because we also came up with more ideas and discussed more things to do in those calls, but it was really helpful to kind of avoid miscommunication and to make sure that I was on the right track, that we were on the same page. Highly recommend at least hopping on like a short call with your editor if you end up in this situation. After that, I had a 2-month turnaround, so it was around like January to end of March. There was like flexibility in the deadline because there was this understanding. I said from the beginning, hey, I'm a grad student, my life is kind of wild and busy and packed. I was kind of worried about the timeline, but I put in the work every single day, and even if it was only 30 minutes, every day I got closer to the goal. And ultimately, I did finish my revision on time, so very proud of that. Didn't have to ask for an extension or anything, just got it done. In that developmental edit, I think I added at least 10,000 to 11,000 words to the manuscript. I think an entire scene got cut, but only one scene got cut. I was mostly adding or trimming, expanding, and I went through the entire book front to back at least twice, like thoroughly, and then a third time was a skim read through to check for loose ends. I turned that in. 1.5 months later, I got back my most recent edit letter, which was pretty short. It was really just like, hey, you did a good job addressing everything in the developmental edit, which I felt really happy about. And so this edit had more feedback from my UK editor, who is now in the mix, and I know that my US and UK editor have had conversations about the book without me, which is normal. My US editor is still going to take point, like, she acquired the book first, we've had the most editorial discussions, but my UK editor has some input now as well, and also left some inline comments in the document. There really isn't that much left for me to do. This one almost feels like a line and continuity edit, although it's not the official line edit, it's still just a smaller dev edit. I had about a month for that one, and now I have 2 weeks left. Not too worried about it. It's really just going through consistency, continuity. Still kind of bigger than a line edit, like a step above, I'd say, but it's not quite so involved as that first developmental edit when I was like cutting scenes, adding 10,000 words. It's a lot more laid back, a lot more granular. If the developmental edits I complete this round are up to scratch and both my editors like what I've done, then the book will go to line edits, which is when we get even more granular. We're really looking at the prose, we're looking at the flow, the quality of the prose. I would say this is probably my favorite stage of edits, and I don't know why, I just love prose so much. After that, the book will go to people who are not my editors. Publishing houses usually have separate copy editors or hire third-party copy editors from my understanding, and that'll be, you know, the copy edit. I have no idea what that looks like at the traditional publishing stage, but I was a copy editor and I know that I have relatively clean copy, but this would be looking at like commas, grammar, spelling, typos. One thing I know from Chris talking about it is that copy editors will also make a glossary almost, where it's how you spell certain things, how, because it's fantasy, certain terms are spelled or capitalized, and then check for that consistency as well. After copy edits, I think that means the book is officially turned in. I know that copy edits have a very quick turnaround time, and that would usually just be me going through and like approving stuff rather than doing a full edit on my own, just checking the copy editor's work. Whoa, my voice is going thin. Holy crap. But I haven't gotten to the line editing or the copy editing stage yet, so take that with a grain of salt. I'm literally just talking mostly based off of Chris's experience because she's, you know, slightly ahead of me on the timeline. And that is what editorial has looked like so far. The final section of these honest author chats is me answering some of your guys' questions. So let's go ahead and pull up some questions. I think I'm only going to answer 4 today. unless the fifth one really compels me for whatever reason. First question is from Sylvia. If you were to go back in time and go through this entire process again, what would you do again and what would you do differently? I feel like everything happens for a reason. I guess if I had the knowledge that I do now, I would write stuff at the Moth's Blood level of quality sooner. I would just like make everything happen a little bit faster, but I love where I am. I mean, like, I love my agent, my editor, I love my book, honestly. Although I have failed a lot and I spent a lot of time putting in the years to get to this point, I don't regret it. I think it happened for a reason. It helped me grow. It helped me gain some tenacity and gain some armor, gain confidence in myself as a writer in this very tumultuous industry. And I think that is a really important trait that does take time to nourish and to develop. Yeah, I guess if I had to change anything, I might write things a little bit faster, but I don't know. I truly don't know. I will say that I may have not pursued some of the other career options that I pursued. I may have taken writing a little bit more seriously a little earlier in my life rather than, you know, trying to, like, in undergrad, I was entirely like 100% convinced that I was going to be a veterinarian. That was my whole life. I was pre-veterinary, which is like the same as pre-med, but your classes are harder to get into. My whole life was geared around vet school. It was very intensive. And during that time, I still wrote, but like not nearly as seriously. I think I just didn't have that faith in myself to really like write well and to write stuff that I write now, which is a little bit less commercial, slightly more literary leaning. And yeah, I mean, like, I wouldn't have changed my science degree. I love science. I had so much fun with it. Maybe I would have taken like creative writing courses or kind of just let myself explore that aspect of myself in a more serious way a little earlier on instead of treating it like a hobby or even honestly like a joke. Like, I was ashamed of my writing for most of my life. It didn't have to be that way. So I guess that's something I would change. Next question is from Shritama. What are the trigger warnings for Moth's Blood and how graphic is each one? P.S. Love your writing and your editing and tips have helped me an insane amount. Congratulations and all the best. Thank you. There will be trigger warnings in the book itself. I have been really adamant about this because I will say that the main character of Moth's Blood is a survivor in multiple ways. I don't really flinch away from this topic, and I don't really flinch away from the fact that her recovery is very, very non-linear. There is drug and alcohol abuse and addiction depicted on page. There's body horror. There is sexual content. I think a trigger, honestly, is academic abuse. Like, there's a fair amount of that depicted in the book as well on page. But I really want to be careful when developing this trigger warning list or content warning list. So I'm not going to give you guys the full list until, you know, myself and hopefully my team have gone through the entire book and really made sure that we've captured everything and represented it well in that list for people who may need it. But yeah, this is a dark book. Like, it's a dark academia fantasy book. I do not shy away from the dark part of that. Crypts is similarly, like, kind of morbid. I mean, it has to do with necromancers and death, so it's a little bit more in a fun way, but Moths deals with some pretty heavy topics. So yeah, just want to give you guys, I guess, fair warning about that, but again, I'm gonna hold off on the full content warning list until I have that definitively, like, written as it would be in the book. Question number 3 is from Devin. I remember when you were struggling with plot complexity. How did you get through the most difficult part of the revision process? I don't remember when I was struggling with plot complexity, because I have a bad memory, not because, I don't know, I just have a terrible memory. This probably refers to either, I have 2 struggles with plot complexity usually. One is that my plot is not complex enough, in which case I just keep adding in different subplots as they arise naturally. And number 2 is that my plot is too complicated and I have to kind of thin it out. In the revision process, I feel like plot didn't come up too much. For Moth's Blood specifically, it is coming back to me. I do remember that. Why am I like sitting like this? This is very odd. For Moths specifically, I do remember that one thing I was kind of dealing with in this revision was that the plot kind of starts out one way and then it transitions into another thing. Like, it's a little bit of a fake out. I think I just kind of like leaned into that. I threaded in that initial plot line that's introduced a little bit more into the rest of the book, but that front bearing part of the plot becomes a subplot. but I do think I managed to transition it relatively naturally. Sorry, I'm being so vague. I don't think there's like a fast and easy answer. I think it's just trust your instincts. Don't think so linearly necessarily. Like, I do really enjoy Save the Cat and 3x structure as skeletons, but like anything with writing craft, they're not rules, right? We don't have to follow those structures to the letter of the law. Really just let the story take you where you want it to take. And it's okay to branch off of those things and to go in different directions. Honestly, it's encouraged and recommended because if we all followed Save the Cat to the letter, every book would be the same and we don't want that. So yeah, I think I just kind of like worked through it. I brainstormed. That's really all there is to it. Okay, question number 4, final question. This is from Asa Merritt. Besides the comps themselves, to what extent did you consider current popular titles in the actual copy of your query letter? Not sure if this falls under this particular question Q&A, but throwing it out there. I would say that outside of comps, like, not much really. I think this question is asking if there's a certain element that worked really well in a very popular similar title. Would I emphasize that element in the body of the query letter? But no, I think I pretty much just emphasized the book's own strengths that stood on its own. I will say that I'm not someone who really considers, for better or worse, what's popular in my genre or subgenre when I'm like writing or at any stage of the process. I mean, I like my work. I like to like fully immerse in it and not consider outside influences. There are multiple stages of the process where I like refuse to read in my genre because I don't want it to unduly influence what I'm writing or what I'm revising. That might be bad. I do still read just like nonfiction or other things in that time. Personally, I'm just a little bit too removed from that. Is it. Those are the 4 questions for today. As a reminder, if you have a question you'd like to ask about publishing or Moth's Blood or Crypts or anything, feel free to drop that in the Google form below. Thank you so much for sitting with me for this honest author chat. If you made it all the way to the end of this video, feel free to drop, I don't know, we're doing a butterfly emoji still for moths because Apple refuses to give me a moth emoji. Give it to me now. And I guess like, comment, and subscribe. Especially subscribe if you're interested in seeing more videos like this in the future. That's it. Thank you so much for watching and have a wonderful day. Bye.